Good morning. This is the Sativa Segment with Richard Cheng, episode 29. Before we get started, I'd like to say that this episode is fueled by Ritter Spencer Cheng. It's a one-stop business law firm specializing in healthcare and alternative substances. If you want to learn a little bit more about the law firm, we're based here in Dallas, Texas. Go to our website, ritterspencercheng.com. I have three wonderful guests today with me. I know Sam. I don't know the PICO team, but hey, we're going to get to know each other really well here in a little bit. Welcome, man.
Hey, man, I'm excited. Thank you for having me here, bro.
What are the chances of you being in Dallas, but then like 2-3 months ago, we ran into each other in New York?
Yeah. That was crazy, right?
That was crazy. Right place at the right time. I was staying at the hotel that I was staying at.
Right.
We had never met in person.
Never. Right? But we spoke on LinkedIn. We spoke via text, talk about the industry.
Well, I looked over and I said, hey, that looks like Sam.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, so like right after New Year's, right? And I fly out there to get on the news, and I'm staying at the hotel right next door to the news station.
Yeah.
And at the exact time that I decided, okay, let me go back into the hotel, because we were recording content and stuff outside. Mm-hmm. And at that exact same time, we run into each other in the lobby. What are the coincidences of that?
Well, because Manhattan's not a small place.
No, not at all. and honestly, if I wasn't going on the news, I probably would not stay at that hotel.
Right. And I think we've talked about this, and even the PICO team mentioned when we were talking about this, is it could have been 1 minute earlier, 1 minute later, and we would never cross paths. Right. But here we are. We connected in person, and I said, hey, next time you're in town, make sure you come on the show.
Right.
Well, what do? You bring on the PICO team with you, which, by the way, we'll talk more about PICO in a little bit, but they are a company, I believe the first company to make sterile CBD, or really hemp cannabinoid based solutions for IV hydration therapy clinics, which you are the president of the American IV Association, and you're the CEO and founder of Liquid Vita.
Yeah, chairman of the American IV Association.
Yep. And I actually represent one of your franchisees.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
See how everything's connected.
Everything's connected.
That's amazing.
And of course, the PICO team, their scope is really, you guys are making solutions that you market to the IV hydration therapy clinics and physicians and whatnot. And you have a very interesting story, and we'll get to that. But let's start off with talking about you as individuals, just really briefly. How did you fall into the IV space, and really how did you guys fall into the IV space, and really how did you really create PICO? So let's start off with you, Sam.
Yeah, so I'm a retired firefighter paramedic to be exact, in South Florida. And I got involved in the functional medicine biohacking space early at the age of 19. You know, I was mentored by Dr. Robert Willix, who's already passed. He passed away at the age of 80 right before COVID. And one thing led to another when I was working with him and learning a lot of the functional medicine things, a lot of the mixture of Eastern and Western medicine, and taking more of that proactive, preventative approach to your health and wellness. I got, presented an opportunity with the IV vitamin therapy business. And I honestly, I got involved as a side gig on my days off in the fire department. Most firefighters, they have side hustles. So I started doing that, and one thing led to another, and it just started growing into this company that, this multi-million-dollar company that I have today. And, we're helping tons of people, man.
Good. But how did you get involved with AIVA? Tell me about that.
So with the American IV Association. So as the industry started growing, when you have a lot of trending type of services that are coming out in the wellness space, a lot of people are getting involved. Then you got a lot of the governing boards that are trying to regulate something that they don't understand. So it got to a point where the industry has grown tremendously. Jeff Cohen, who's a healthcare attorney, you know him.
Yep, he's spoken.
Yep. He put together the American IV Association, him and his team. And it was around for about 1.5 to 2 years, give or take. And it really wasn't getting the traction that it needed. And it was one of the industry conferences that all of us were out there, a lot of the CEOs that are leading the way. And we all got together, we were eating lunch, and we said, we really need something that's going to help regulate the industry, something that we all collectively can come together and make that happen. And that's where we decided, Jeff Cohen specifically, to put a leadership advisory board together that consists of myself as the chairman. They appointed me back in January 2024. And Ben Crosby, who's the CEO of Drip Bar. They have hundreds of locations.
Yep.
And then Revive, which is Sarah Lomas, she's the CEO of Revive. They're in 47 different countries. So we put that together, and then we put a founding members board, which have about another 20 individuals, CEOs and doctors that are leading the way in the industry. And we've created all these different committees and stuff to really position the industry where it needs to be.
Okay. Wow, what a story. That's it's so great that you're so involved with the industry, and then you're essentially creating this body to help self-regulate more or less. Because I mean, let's be honest, the IV hydration therapy industry is not as regulated as some other more traditional healthcare and wellness sectors.
Yeah, no, you're right. And one word you said is self-regulate, right? And if you don't self-regulate early, you're going to be regulated. So you really have to set that footprint in place and work with the regulatory bodies out there so they can further understand what we're doing and that it's not something that we're just kind of like pulling out of thin air. You know, this is something that there is science behind it. You have medical professionals, you know, doctors, PhD researchers behind it, pharmacists that are actually putting all this stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, like depending on what state you're in, you know, you have, it's becoming more regulated. Like here in Texas, we're in the legislative session, and there's actually some proposed bills that's actually very much impacting this industry. And obviously, if you're in a state like California or Texas, you have corporate practice medicine laws that you have to structure your business a certain way.
Right.
But let's flip over to the PICO team. The PICO team they have a phenomenal story. Because I until I spoke with you, Sam, I didn't know there was a company out there that was making hemp cannabinoid solutions for the IV therapy industry. So Miles and Dan, you're the chief scientific officer, and Dan, you're the director of business development. Tell me about the genesis of PICO IV and how you guys came up with the idea, and why cannabis? Why did you fall into the cannabinoid based industry?
Yeah, I mean, I can go way back. I was selling solar with him, and then we were selling solar panels to cannabis grows back in California. And then I was kind of looking through it, and I'm like, you know, there's probably something here. You know, people were getting on early. This is probably what, 2015, something like that. 2018 comes around and they legalize hemp, right, or declassify it from a Schedule I substance. So I'm a sales guy at heart, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell these tinctures, right, the little oil droppers under the tongue. So I wanted to lower my COGS, so I started learning and teaching myself about the oil, you know, and kind of started looking at cryoethanol extraction, taught myself that, taught myself hot hexane extraction, taught myself winterization, so defatting and desugaring the oils. And then I started looking at, you know, how far could I go with this? So I got my first little set, and I actually got into molecular distillation, isolation of different cannabinoids. And then once I, you know, got my COGS way down, I'm like, okay, now what can I do? Started looking at how to increase the bioavailability, right? So you have a fat that's not going to be very bioavailable for yourself. So how do we make this water soluble? You know what I mean? So what I had to do was, you know, teach myself basically how to manipulate hydrophilic and lipophilic properties in order to make a balanced emulsion, right, in a system. I achieved that and made a stable water soluble, but they look like milk, right? The particles are so large that light can't pass through them freely. So it looks like a bunch of milk, but it is more bioavailable. So I'm like, great, we sell that, you know, we're having a good time. And then, you know, and then everyone wants their cake and eat it too. They all go, I like this, but I want it clear, you know? They're like, I want it clear, I want it clear. So that was the next hurdle. So thermodynamically speaking, to make a particle that small, like there isn't really technology, even in ultrasonics, that can emit enough energy to shrink the particle of the emulsion that small, because now you're at a situation where you have more surface area than you have mass. So I had to come up with our patented process, and I achieved it and got a clear emulsion. Well, what clear visually can tell you is that when you're sub like 10 nanometers in diameter, you're going to have a slight fog to it, right? But if it's crystal clear, you're, down in the very bottom of the nano realm, or the upper pico realm. And that's kind of how we came up with the name.
So that's a term.
It's a measurement.
Got it.
So you have nano, everyone's like nanotechnology, this is pico technology. Okay. So, and, there's a lot of people that go, it's impossible, but when you get down to that level, specifically with cannabinoids, or let's talk about CBD,
right?
It's a rod shape. It's not a spherical shape. Okay. So when you think and look at that, if you can get it down small enough, then you have a molecule that's 1.5 nanometers in length, but it's only 400 to 500 picometers in diameter. So
very long and thin.
Yes.
Right?
Like horrible bacteria that work great in your body.
I mean, I would imagine, because given the width, which is very, 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 very tiny, what is it more difficult? Is it more challenging to essentially reshape that molecule versus, like you said, more of a spherical molecule?
Well, when you have a system where you have different oil droplets, and there's multiple molecules, it wants to go in a spherical shape just because it's in a water system. But when you go down to the individual molecule, that's when it already naturally is that shape. So cannabinoids are just in general. So it's creating almost like the best emulsion possible. And then once that happens, now you can go through sterile filtration. You can just for people that don't know this, you have a 0.1 or a 0.45 micron filter that it has to go through in order to remove particulates to be sterilized. The issue is nobody could make a molecule small enough to go through that, and that's what we did. So that's why it's been so long, and all over the world, there's not one company that's done this.
You guys are the first ones, right?
Yeah.
You guys are the first manufacturers of sterile cannabinoid solutions. And is it more costly to make cannabinoid-based solutions versus like some other type of solution that an IV hydration therapy clinic would use?
I mean, when you get into, everyone knows that's in the cannabinoid market knows that like the prices have come way down. Like the market's kind of crashed out, So cannabinoids in general are super cheap. But now you're at a situation where you have to go through so many processes that the cost is loaded onto the process. It's not the ingredient.
Right. So it's not the raw materials, but the actual process of making the solution involving cannabinoids is more costly.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that it's harder to make a margin off of that? Or is it because you sell so much of it and you're the first, you kind of the trailblazer in the industry?
Yeah.
Does that offset some of the cost as part of the process?
Yeah, cost is part of the process. And that's why, we try to be competitive with like, the other modalities that like, Liquid Vita or people offer. But yeah, it's heavily impactful on the because we had to make the market, but it basically, to rent a clean room is like, $30,000 a day, you know what I mean? For like a class 5 clean room.
Right. So
it's like, you got to get in there, get the manufacturing process done. And then, it took an extra day there, and it just stacks up. And then you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars just to do like a one batch run.
Got it.
So.
Okay. I'm going to flip over to Dan and then we'll flip back because I do have some other questions for you.
Yeah. I love it.
Dan, you help PICO IV with promoting the products, selling it. You're the director of business development. Help me understand how you determine who your target audience is when you go and market PICO IV products.
Yeah, target audience would be anything but conventional medicine. People that are working with more natural solutions. I think there's a big shift happening right now in the healthcare industry where synthetics just is getting kind of a bad rap. And people are looking more to get back to traditional medicine. And plant-based medicine was traditional medicine for thousands of years. It wasn't until the last 100 years that this started getting pushed out, started becoming more scrutinized, started to become more weird and taboo. So the people that we're working with would be those on the integrative side of medicine, functional medicine, naturopathic, homeopath, wellness centers, hydration centers.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. You seem very passionate about this industry, to say the least. We were talking about the endocannabinoid system. Is it fair to say that this, not just this industry, but I would say society as a whole, is fairly undereducated on the endocannabinoid system and how, as you would say, traditional plant medicine affects the human body. Therefore, there is a stigma to it, or maybe at least just some level of ignorance to it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a sin that this is not being taught in medical school.
Well, because it's not.
It's
we
not
talked
at
about
all.
that.
And we're talking about a system that is connected to every system within your body. So your central nervous system, your endocrine system, your pulmonary system, digestive, reproductive, your immune system, your muscular system, skeletal system. Not only does the endocannabinoid system connect to all these, but it can help modulate all of them. We have trillions of cannabinoid receptors in our body. I think we can all agree if we have trillions of anything in our body, it's probably pretty important, right? So what's interesting about plant-based cannabinoids is that it can stimulate this system. So creating awareness around the system is massive, not only for healthcare providers and practitioners out there, for every human being to understand that what this system helps regulate in the body, that this system is so important for our self-healing process. And once we understand what this system connects to, what it helps regulate, then we can learn what we can do to support this system. And there's many things that we can do in regular life to support this system, but plant-based cannabinoids is one of those that can definitely stimulate and help the system operate the way that it was intended to.
So as you're promoting PICO IV products, as you're entering into physician offices, maybe IV hydration therapy clinics, what are some of the pushbacks that you get, or what are some of the questions that you typically get from your potential buyers?
Yeah, it's there's still a stigma, right, that we need to break, that this is associated with THC. And what a lot of people don't understand is that this cannabis plant has over 200 cannabinoid compounds, right? So THC is just one, CBD is just one. So creating the education about that there are multiple different compounds in this plant, and the compounds that we're working with are non-psychoactive. This isn't about, recreational. This is about self-healing. So that's something that we come up across, and a lot of people are concerned about drug testing. And we're 34,000 doses in the last, I want to say 19 months, we've had 0 positive drug tests. So I would say, the two things that are big that constantly come up is associating it with THC, and then whether or not, they're going to get high, which they're not. These are all non-psychoactive cannabinoids. And then, the drug testing as well.
Yeah. So in your solutions, because you make different types of cannabinoid-based solutions. I believe, Miles, you said you had CBG, you had CBN.
CBD, CBG, CBC, CBN, CBDA, and CBGA.
Yeah, and so when you're marketing these products, do the clinics ever buy multiple different types to where they're playing with the different types, or do they ever combine solutions, or how does that work?
So as of now, with the CBD broad spec, all 6 cannabinoids are mixed in. So what we're creating is an entourage effect. Multiple of these different cannabinoids have different therapeutic
Which has
effects.
been a concept that's been talked about for years, right? Is that if you use one, like a CBD isolate, it's not nearly as effective as if you use like a broad or full spectrum because of the entourage effect.
Right. And if you think about like integrative oncology doctors or practitioners, they stack so many different therapies together. They may stack 8 to 9 different therapies within a week, right? And then repeat that process. So essentially we're stacking cannabinoids, right? We're creating that entourage effect where they're hitting different pathways simultaneously in the body. And a lot of these cannabinoids have overlapping effects. They share similar properties to where it's intensifying the effects.
But they don't do it the same way. It's a different way to skin a cat.
Yeah, right. Help me remember, is it CBG or is it CBN that helps with sleep? There's one particular one.
CBN.
CBN. Now, is that a pretty popular one with IV hydration clinics?
I could tell you that hands down, everybody after they experience the infusion, they're like, that was the best sleep ever.
Really?
And I mean, it's as simple as, putting on an iWatch or whatever that monitors your sleep, and people just see them drop into REM and like hold there. They don't like cycle out of it.
Okay.
So it's.
I only ask for selfish reasons because I'm thinking I need some because I don't sleep very
you
well.
got to try it. I mean, I remember
he always says it. He always says it.
And I tell anyone, like when we're at the conferences.
Well, the problem, here's the problem. Here's my problem. This is a personal problem. So, I mean, but I'm deathly afraid of needles.
I'll close your eyes.
Oh,
yeah.
So is this guy right here.
And so, and I was actually on the phone with a friend, and I'm like, I've probably launched in excess of 15 to 20 different IV hydration therapy clinics in the last 2-3 years. I've never once tried any products. I've never once been into it. As you know, I represent one of your franchisees. Just 10 minutes down the road.
You can't say to the IV guy.
I know. I've never.
Now I want to be the actual technician that actually starts your IV now.
Oh hell no! I'm not even that.
I have an issue with it. I vagal every time, and they all bring out their phones and watch me like.
I got
lose
so much
it.
video. It's
Yeah, but anyway, to note, we're 10 minutes down the road. You can come get one.
Okay, that's funny.
But you got to do a small needle.
Small needle. Noted. So when PICO got started, you said it was self-funded because we had a conversation about this earlier.
Yeah.
It's self-funded. You and your business partner kind of bootstrapped it.
Yeah.
How long has it been in operation so far?
Well, I mean, basically our original company has been around for 7 years, maybe 8 now. Okay. And PICO's only been around for about 15 months. So what we did is it was a product originally. I think Forbes did an article on it, and then we broke it off into its own entity. So, we wanted to, kind of, it just took traction and it was becoming its own thing. So that's kind of, how that happened. So,
I would imagine that there has been some challenges, whether it's policy challenges, regulatory challenges, FDA challenges, whatnot.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the maybe hurdles that you've encountered and, and how you've mitigated some of those concerns?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, the timing's right now with the right administration in office, in our opinion, for this, because Trump's the one that when he was in first in office, he made the Farm Bill enable the hemp market, right?
Yep. December 20th, 2018.
To research it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to raise awareness and research it. So, I mean, there's always the stigma. There's always the hurdles. Recently, I mean, everyone's like, how do we know it's sterile? It's like, well, like Ava, we work with Ava, and it's like we go through the process. We're self-regulating, right? There isn't laws written about this because they're like, it never existed. They're like, what? You're going to inject it? You know what I mean? So we wanted to self-regulate. I wanted to overkill it, and that's what we've been told by 503 consultants, that we're overkilling it.
Okay.
We have a process that gets it down to 1 in 10 quadrillion contamination rate. Right. So, and that's just compounding the rule of 90%. If you do something and it has 90% efficiency, you do another thing, it's now 99, and another thing, it's 99.9, right? You're just stacking those processes.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, FDA requires a 0.45 particulate filtration, right? Well, I wanted to go 0.45 and 0.1 because I wanted to stack those so they do have a safer product and a more sterile product. Even though, regulations here, I want to make sure I'm above and beyond that.
Right.
So, and that's just one step. And then, obviously, anyone that's in the market, I mean, you got to be careful about what you say and how you say it, right? And it's like, you can't even, before testimonials were okay. They're not okay now. You can't have somebody else say something about it. And then if you even tag them in it or repost it, now you're saying it. Now it's your claim. Yeah. And
and that's big with FDA, right? Is the medical claims.
Yeah.
But I think what you guys are doing is you guys are going through the process of being diligent and exercising some really good faith efforts to self-regulate, as you say, but setting the bar a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So they're setting the floor.
Yeah.
You guys are setting the
ceiling. No.
The ceiling, right? I mean, and I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a legal or really an unspoken standard, and you guys are making that standard even better. So I think that I think that should yield some credit and some good faith efforts on PICO IV's part to not only self-regulate, but self-regulating it in an effective way, and to make it safe and effective for the general public. Yeah, because I think that's always going to be a concern with governmental agencies.
Oh yeah, right? they're worried.
Is how is the public going to be impacted? Is it a public health issue?
Yeah, and that's where it's like, a lot of people thought, oh my God, they're selling to the public, just handing needles out. Right. It's like no,
and I'll chime in on that too, because obviously anyone who knows me in the industry, they know I just don't mess around with anything, right? There's a lot of research that we have to do on our end from the Liquivita side, and even the American IV Association. And when I first met these guys, my first thing was like, how is this product manufactured? What are the processes in place? On the Liquivita side, we have our own product that gets manufactured on the 503B side. So I understand the process that these type of sterile injectables need to go through. And these guys met all of those steps, right? So when you start looking at the process of the sterility of the product, are they third-party tested? This is what these guys are doing. And that's where they came on board as founding members into the American IV Association, which the American IV Association, we have a scientific advisory board. It's led by the chair of the scientific advisory board, Dr. Chris Seitz. And, he's worked with them very closely as well, too, on the product and everything, how they're putting everything together and everything else. So, this is not something that's just like, being cooked in your bathtub or something. This is something that is going through a very strict process, a lot of testing that's involved. And, when you look at these regulatory bodies, they try to, anything new, they try to be all over it. And it's not just the FDA, the FTC with a lot of the claims and stuff. I've dealt with it, in the years I've been in the industry for almost 2 decades. So I see it in and out. We've seen it with the peptides. We've seen it with the stem cells, the exosomes. And it's just, how Miles was saying, I think now we're going to be positioned a little bit differently with the new administration, with RFK Jr. in office leading the way, where a lot of these off-label alternative treatments that are truly helping people are going to become more mainstream, and physicians and the different clinicians are going to be able to really help the patients with it.
And just one more thing to add on to that, most people are like, oh, well, it's not made in a 503 facility. Well, it's not allowed to be made in a 503 facility because
we talked about that
it's not
earlier.
on a bulk list. Right. So what we had to do was we had to get, a class 5 clean room in order to have it made in that, is FDA inspected, but it's not, ran by the FDA.
Right. And because you said you can't go through the 503, you're not working with any compound pharmacies or anything.
We can't.
That. Yeah.
And it's not that we wouldn't want to, but we can't.
Right.
Because it would have to be on the bulks list, and it's not. Right. So, and that's where it's like we had to, essentially hire a private facility that is literally, California meets all the standards, for drug manufacturing and whatnot. It's a pressurized clean room, but it's like we have to go that route because they made it that way. It's not because I didn't want to.
Is that clean room? And this is something I don't know, but is that clean room? Do they have to be registered with the FDA at all?
So like I said, it's inspected. It meets their standards. California definitely inspects them.
Okay.
But in order for them to have all their certs and whatnot, so yeah.
That must be I would imagine that's pretty hard to find, like a regular clean room to work with.
Like I said, and it's expensive. Yeah. They're like, oh,
what'd you say it was like $30,000?
Like a day, and they're like, oh, you can't go down the street. All right, we're gonna rack it up. And I'm like, okay.
Hey, listen, if you're spending $30,000 a day, I don't know what else screams good faith efforts to make something. Quality,
I would love not to do that. So, but I have to.
But that just shows you the type of regulatory that's involved. and what they charge those prices for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's because they have to hold all of the different licensures, certifications to be able to make things.
Yeah. I mean,
compliant.
they have huge investments in it, and literally, everything in the pharmaceutical space is, just like cannabis. So we call it the cannabis tax. It's like the pharmaceutical tax.
Yeah.
Everything costs. This cup that came from pharmaceutical pharmacy would cost 10 times more.
And I'll tell you what, California is no joke when it comes to all the regulatory stuff. They supersede, in a lot of cases, they supersede the rules of the FDA and a lot of the federal bodies. Listen, even with franchising, and you've probably seen it, franchising, a lot of things to deal with business on the medical side, even that. But when it comes to the pharmaceutical side, on the 503B side, it's not an easy process. There's only like 1 or 2 503B pharmacies that can even ship into California. Yeah. I mean, that's how strict California is.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I'm excited that we're manufacturing there, everything except for the cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are in an FDA inspected facility in Utah.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys make that in Utah?
Yeah. So all the distillation, isolation, extraction, all that is done in Utah. And then it chain of custodies over to 3 different facilities in Cali. Okay. That does the ultrasonication patented process. Then it goes over to another facility for the particulate removal through the 0.1 and 0.45 and 0.1 micron filtration. Then it gets vialed up, and then it goes, it's only like half a mile down the street to a E-beam irradiation facility.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think both of you have mentioned the word research a couple of times. Have you worked with third parties on advanced research, or because your products are what it is today, but are you developing new products? Are you conducting new research to explore other cannabinoids beyond what you have today? Yeah.
This year that's our main focus. Okay. So we already have an IRB approved through the HHS. And we have another one that we're doing a broad research study on. So that is our focus. That's what we want to do. We had to get the product right, and now we finally have that. So we're actually looking to really dig into it. I think Dr. Davis with Liquid Vita is going to be like huge in like. I always say, point me in the right direction. I know how to make the product. I know how to physically like do what we need, but I need somebody else like an MD or a PhD to be like, this is what I need at this ratio, and I can nail that. So I always relate it to stocks. If you don't know what the market's going to do, you diversify, right? Well, that's what we did with the multiple cannabinoids for the first product. Yeah. But if you know what the market's going to do, you all in on here, right? Yeah. So that's going to be the evolution of PICO in the future.
Are you able to disclose any potential new products, or is that still undercover?
I could.
How much can you really tell me?
Well, I can tell you this. I could take any cannabinoid and make this product with it. So, as he said, I think there's about 220 known cannabinoids, some unknowns, right? I mean, literally.
And I think some of them are like secondary and analog cannabinoids, right? Yeah. They're smaller, the less known ones.
Yeah, the less known ones. But I mean, as the advancement of isolation and molecular chromatography of the cannabinoids evolves, then we can take those raw products and refine them into this.
Okay.
So,
I think the future of this, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, would be pairing the right 2 cannabinoids or the right 3 cannabinoids for a very specific health condition, right? Being able to get very targeted with the cannabinoids with health conditions, and that's just going to take a long time. I mean, we just started this, 18 months ago, so I mean, it's a long road ahead of us.
Yeah, and I think the biggest point here is there's 30,000 research papers in NIH and PubMed and all the government websites, right? The issue is all the research stops like either in vivo or vitro, because they're like, we didn't have a systemic way of quantifying the milligram dosage, right? Well, that's what we gave everyone, a systemic quantifiable milligram dose. That's, essentially a healthy way of doing it. Yeah. And what we're seeing is, and I truly believe this, and maybe I could be wrong, When you go through first pass metabolism, your body your liver specifically turns it into hydroxy 11. And that's what everybody has been doing research on. Hydroxy 11 CBD, hydroxy 11 THC, all of those things. When we do it in this manner, we bypass that first system. So literally it doesn't get converted. So we're seeing beyond bioavailability, we're seeing exponential results. And I truly believe that it's because it's for the first time your body is getting actual CBD, actual CBG.
Yeah.
It's not hydroxy 11.
And to touch on that, it's like he was saying, if you look at the thousands of studies that have been done, there's a very common conclusion. We need a better delivery system. We need something systemic to see this plant's true capabilities with the human body. So that's what he's created. But the other important thing beyond the bioavailability and delivering it systemically is the particle size. It matters. At the smallest point of these cannabinoid particulates going into the bloodstream are 10,000 times smaller than a red blood cell. So this just has the ability to get into areas of the body no therapy or other modalities or certainly any cannabinoids ever been able to reach deep into the tissues, deep into the cells, and easily crossing the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, do you talk about that when you promote the products? And more importantly, actually, as you can probably tell in the Sativa segment, I'm trying to get you guys to disclose what your new products are. So it's like I'm the first one to get to know.
I can't tell you it's never going to be THC because if you were to deliver like 0.1 milligrams, put it this way, you'd be high for a month.
Yeah, so, we talked about that whole plasma story. You told me about the whole if you inject it and infused it with plasma, you put it back in the person's body. We talked about that earlier. Yeah, the person was remain high for forever.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is bad. You know,
psychotic.
They're like, I don't think he's ever coming down.
right. God, that's got to be a bad trip.
But how does Dan change his marketing strategies with these new products? I mean, because you're getting new products and you're going maybe in different directions, is your promotions different, or are you going to different markets, different states, targeting different demographics? Tell me about that.
Well, I don't know how much the product is going to change for a while, but if it does and we start breaking off very specific cannabinoids, then we would just educate on exactly what those could potentially do in the human body. Yeah. Really get into the mechanisms of them, what receptors would be triggered, what pathways, and what conditions has it been historically studied for. And we would just have to educate on what it does. And again, this is reverting back to the endocannabinoid system. We educate on what this system does, because the truth is, it is the system that is telling your body to heal itself. Yep. So all we're doing with these plant-based cannabinoids is just initiating that action.
Right. And I think, to that point, one thing we didn't touch on was your endogenous cannabinoids, right? Your endocannabinoid. So people don't realize when they go, yeah, you got an endocannabinoid system. It's like, yes, you do. But do you realize that before you were born, like your mother was giving her cannabinoids to you? That's how you were developing. And literally
in utero.
Yeah. And it literally rises up until birth. And then through mother's milk, she's giving you more cannabinoids. And literally all these mechanisms in your body, whether you're taking phytocannabinoids or not to trigger your system, your body is making anandamide and 2-AG. Those are endogenous cannabinoids that are literally making these systems trigger. So with or without it, it's already in your body. Yeah. And that's why I laugh when people are like, oh, well, it's a drug. And I'm like, do you know you have cannabinoids in you right now? Like you're walking around just making them? So.
It's a very good point.
I think endocannabinoid deficiency is a big thing. That's the big education we need to drive, is the importance of our own body's endocannabinoids, that these are absolutely crucial to our health and wellness. This is the oil to the endocannabinoid system. It will not work without endocannabinoids. Yeah. So endocannabinoid deficiency is a real thing, where if we don't think about what would happen to an engine that you didn't do an oil change for 6 months, then 12 months, then 16 months, then 2 years, things are going to start malfunctioning. And that's the same thing that happens with our endocannabinoid system, because this system keeps all systems in homeostasis.
And the funny thing is we, if you go on AI and say, what would happen if I had no endocannabinoids in my system? It just says you would die. Like literally.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. As he was talking, I was just thinking, I'm gonna put this into Chat GPT just to see what it says, right?
Yeah, no.
And I've never thought about doing that until he was talking about that. I'm
and
like,
and
after
that's
the show,
thing.
I'm gonna put that into Chat GPT.
Yeah, just be like, what would happen? It's like, you will die. You can't not have cannabinoids in your system. Like,
And this is a different discussion, but there's more and more discussion about how AI can be incorporated into the cannabis industry and how it could help advance. And quite frankly, it could eliminate some of the stigma as well.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
As we're wrapping up, I want one person to say what their 2025 plans are to help promote your business, or what are your big plans for 2025?
So my big plan for 2025 is really bringing the industry even closer together, right? Initially when I got into the industry, it was a very cutthroat mentality, and the competition was just like for itself. And for us to be able to, we all know based off history, like, divide and conquer. That's the last thing we need to happen within our industry. We don't need, the big mafioso out there that are giving us a hard time to conquer us, right? So, for me, we got to create that one strong voice. That's why AVA was put together. We have to stick together and really push these things that are really helping people and changing people's lives for the good. We have to do it together. So my goal is exactly that, is bringing the industry closer together and really just making things happen.
Good. Okay. Miles?
My goal for 2025 is really the research aspect and, raising awareness about endocannabinoid deficiency. I think that's the biggest thing we need to talk about, because, there's research that shows that, your enzymes that break down cannabinoids literally stay the same throughout your whole life. Mm-hmm. But as you age, your endocannabinoid production declines. So that right there is great information.
Are you getting to talk about that here in town at CryoCon?
Dan is actually doing a class. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll be doing a breakout session.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What about you, Dan?
Well, I like what Sam said, creating unity, right? We all need to bond together. There's a big shift happening right now in the medical industry in the United States, and creating awareness and doing it together and meeting like we do in these conferences, and then taking that back to our communities and creating awareness there. But again, if we're going to keep saying the same thing with the endocannabinoid system, it's not only I want every health practitioner to understand the system, but every human being, because this is the ticket for the future of health and wellness, the future of longevity, the future of preventative healthcare. If we can stimulate this system, if we can learn how to support this system, if we can learn how to biohack this system, I think we're going to see a lot more healthy people here in the US, and then we can spread that worldwide.
And I think, quite honestly, preventative medicine, if it's done right, you can look at the healthcare system as a whole saving a lot of money, to be quite honest, because you're dealing with less sick people, less admissions in hospitals, less administrative wasting into the healthcare system, less use of different types of drugs and traditional medicine. Because quite honestly, if you think about it, when we get sick, what do? We take a pharmaceutical product. We mask that symptom because we get a headache, right? Or we get a fever.
Exactly.
So all you're really doing is you're putting a patch on everything.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and then your raft's going down with all these Band-Aids.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think is important about what we're doing. And then again, educating about the ECS is this is getting to the root cause. You're getting directly to the immune system. You're getting direct to the inflammation of the body. You're getting direct to the brain, and neuroprotective. So it is getting to the root cause. And I think that's something we all need to start focusing on. As you mentioned, get away from the Band-Aid solutions.
Yeah, I think our biggest goal should be like, let's get this taught in medical school. Like, well, why is it not there?
It's not.
Yeah,
I think I told you earlier.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine got like a 30-minute lecture, but hey, thank you guys for making the time to come on to the show. Really enjoyed having the PICO team, and of course Sam.
Absolutely, man.
Great seeing you in person again, and Liquid Vita is still rocking and rolling, and I think you're doing an excellent job with Ava, and
Thank you.
you guys have fun in Dallas.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
And come get your infusion.
Yeah.
I'm
Get
afraid of
down there.
needles. So. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Awesome, brother.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.